Hello, everyone. Today we're going to talk about an important speech made by President Joe Biden, where he touched on various pressing issues. Biden discussed the country's economic successes, the crises it faces, and foreign policy. Let's break it all down. First of all, Biden talked about the improving economic situation in the country, and he had some good news for everyone. He highlighted a recent agreement reached between the Longshoremen's Union and shipping carriers to prevent the closure of ports on the East Coast and in the Gulf region. This agreement not only avoided a major crisis but also ensured significant wage increases for port workers. Biden pointed out that this is a perfect example of how crucial collective bargaining and cooperation are. Biden also shared that in September, the U.S. economy created 250,000 new jobs, far exceeding the initial projection of 150,000. These numbers are better than anyone expected, and they show that Biden's economic policies are indeed working. Since the start of his presidency, over 16 million jobs have been created in the United States, more jobs than during any other presidential term in U.S. history. He also reminded everyone that the unemployment rate remains low at 4.1% and inflation is steadily declining. For Biden, this proves that the economy is recovering without mass job losses and wages are beginning to rise. Biden emphasized that his economic policy focuses on growing the middle class. He often says that the economy should grow from the bottom up and the middle out. What he means is that prosperity should come from ordinary workers and families, not just from big corporations. When the middle class grows, the entire country becomes stronger. In addition to domestic policy, Biden touched on international matters, particularly the tensions in the Middle East. He mentioned that the U.S. stands firmly with Israel but is also cautious about the idea of direct strikes on Iranian oil facilities. Biden suggested considering alternative actions before escalating to such a point. He also assured that the U.S. remains in close contact with Israeli officials to prevent further escalation of the conflict. The president also talked about the upcoming U.S. elections. He expressed confidence that they will be free and fair, but admitted that there are concerns about security, especially considering some of the rhetoric coming from former President Trump and his supporters. Biden criticized claims made by Senator Marco Rubio that recent job figures were fake, labeling them as typical tactics from those who disagree with reality, something he often attributes to the MAGA Republicans. Regarding natural disasters, Biden discussed the federal response to Hurricane Helene. He stressed that his administration had deployed 15,000 federal personnel, along with food, water, and fuel, in the hardest-hit areas before the storm arrived. So far, over $45 million has been provided to individuals and families affected by the hurricane. He thanked both Republican and Democratic governors for their support and stated that more funding might soon be requested from Congress to address ongoing recovery needs. Finally, Biden reiterated that, despite the successes, there is still much work ahead. He remains focused on making housing more affordable and reducing prescription drug costs, especially for seniors. According to him, these are crucial steps in strengthening the economy and improving the quality of life for ordinary Americans. So, that was President Biden's detailed and important speech, where he covered a lot of ground, from the economy and labor negotiations to international policy and crisis response. Main questions and answers from the entire press conference. Question: what do you think about Senator Marco Rubio's statement that the job numbers are fake? Answer: the job data is real, and any claims of fake data are typical of those who disagree with the factual information. Possible strikes on Iranian oil facilities. Question: could you clarify your comments regarding possible strikes on Iranian oil facilities? Answer: Israel has not yet made a decision, and it is recommended to consider alternatives instead of immediate strikes on oil facilities. Upcoming U.S. elections. Question: what are your expectations regarding the fairness and peacefulness of the upcoming elections? Answer: There is confidence that the elections will be fair, but there are concerns about the peacefulness due to recent rhetoric from some politicians. Response to the situation in Israel. Question: what advice do you have for Israel in response to aggression, and how does your leadership influence their decision? Answer: Israel has the right to self-defense, but caution is recommended to minimize civilian casualties. Ongoing contact and discussions are being held. Sanctions against Iran. Question: are sanctions against Iran, including restrictions on oil, being considered? Answer: this issue is under consideration, but details will not be discussed publicly. Vice President Harris's role in crises. Question: what role does Vice President Harris play in addressing current crises? Answer: the Vice President is in constant contact and actively participates in decision-making and implementing support measures for the population. Response to recent crises, including the hurricane. Question: how are the consequences of the hurricane being evaluated for the economy, and what measures are being taken? Answer: federal resources and personnel were prepositioned to support those affected. Additional funding from Congress may be needed. Impact of crises on elections. Question: how might the consequences of the hurricane affect the conduct of the elections? Answer: all resources are being directed to support those affected to ensure that their voices are heard in the upcoming elections. Response to claims about migration and funding. Question: how do you respond to accusations of using FEMA funding to support undocumented migrants? Answer: these statements are categorically false. FEMA funding has not been used for such purposes. International visits and human rights. Question: how does the administration plan to respond to criticism of human rights issues ahead of international visits? Answer: the President has never shied away from discussing human rights and will bring up this topic in upcoming meetings.